Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River. I'm Reverend Paul Sprecher, visiting you all the way from Hingham, Massachusetts, in the remote regions of the Boston Bay. Next week, I'm in Chatham, so kind of spanning the eastern part of the Commonwealth. Let's light our chalice. Kid, if you would light it for us. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. And it should not go without mentioning that today is not only a day to talk about Mother Earth, but about mothers more broadly. So we'll take a moment a little later to honor our mothers on this Mother's Day. But now let's turn to number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning, number 163. Please rise in body or in spirit. if you would turn in the back of your hymnals to number 471, our affirmation this morning. Number 471. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to speak knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls should grow into harmony with the divine, thus one with each other and with God. Please be seated. Are there announcements? Sure, there are announcements. Who has an announcement, perhaps one want to say?
Thank you, Paul, for joining us to lead us in worship today. We haven't seen you in a while. It's nice to have you back.
Always my pleasure.
And I would like to know that he's the first one with us this week, so please come.
Pretty much today. If you didn't bring anything, that's fine.
You mean if everything was delectable, it would disappear? Any others? Nancy. Thank you.
All right, this is about Earth today. So this is a song by Tom Lehrer, who actually still alive. He's 90-something years old. He's back in the mid-60s. He had a few years of popularity playing piano and writing songs that were, well, a lot of them, it turned out he was very popular in England after the BBC banned 10 out of the 12 songs on his newest album. So that's CL's frenzy, so to speak. So he wrote songs about lots of subjects. This one is about pollution.
There's some kind of a high side.
Oh,
Just come.
okay, this
Just
was,
we get a microphone. Thank you.
okay here. Okay, we're gonna give it a shot. Here we go. Don't drink the water, don't breathe the air. Pollution, pollution, they are sorry, Susan, mother. Turn on your tap and rock and roll. See the halibut and the sturgeon feeding like that by the turn. Fish are swimming and birds are flying. They don't last long if they try. Pollution, pollution, you can lose the ways to face. And then rinse your mouth with industrial waste. Just go out for a breath of air. You'll be ready for Medicare. The science streets are really quite a thrill. If the floods don't get you on pollution, pollution, where a gas mask in a veil. Then you can breathe long as you don't inhale. Lots of things there that we can
thinking it would be later, remember that it kind of caught on, the concern about pollution. Any of you remember the Cuyahoga River catching on fire, among other places? There were signs and wonders in those days. And eventually even a conservative administration had to support the EPA being created. And we've done a lot to clean up, but not everything. And now we're facing another crisis in the climate. So, yeah. Our invocation is by Lynn Harrison. Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. Our chalice is a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world not of wealth, but of well-being, a world of new peace and abundance for everyone. As we give thanks for this earth, our home, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us, may we respond today and always with courage and love. Let's take a minute to remember our mothers. We all have mothers who have cherished us in so many different ways. Sometimes in the course of growing up, we become a little less affectionate toward our mothers, but they brought us into this world and cared for us, and we owe them a debt of gratitude as we do to our much greater Mother Earth, who also sustains us every day. So let me invite you to, in the silence of the room, one at a time, mention the name of your mother and perhaps a word or two. My mother's name is Flora, and thanks be to God, she is still alive at 98 and has the blessings of having 3 great-great-grandchildren. Others, just raise up the name of your mother and perhaps a word or two.
My mother was Louise, and she had 4 children, and I think she was really having a time.
My mother was Mary Catherine, and she was one of those stay-at-home moms who was there after school and cooking the milk, and she was, in one word, sassy.
My mom was Dorothy. She lived to 91 and they took her dancing every weekend up until a week before she died. And wasn't anything more than she was a stay-at-home mom with 6 kids. Very little money, but she did everything. It was a tough woman. That's special.
Don't be shy. Yeah.
My mother's name is Nicole, and she's 82 years old. And twice Nicole, instead of becoming gentler in her growing, she's gotten feistier, which is good because she speaks her mind, and I love that. Anyway, that's it.
How about, go ahead.
So my mother is Jean. She's 100 years old, and she had her birthday party last weekend.
Oh,
Loved every minute of it. She was the queen of the day. She wore her tiara. Everybody loved her. It was, sure. And then Thursday, she had a very well-planned part. They worried about replacement procedure. The surgeon said she came through with flying colors. She came home the next day, and she's back to making trouble for everybody. She's got a little trick, so she's quite something.
It's wonderful.
She'll tell you that today.
Come on, guys. Got to hear from you too.
I have a mother, actually. They were great big contrasts in style. Nancy's mother was a pilgrim, and my mother wasn't at all. But they did manage to get along okay.
I got one. I just celebrated my 60th birthday, and it made me remember my mom. My mom was 4'8", and I was born at 12 pounds 4 ounces. My mom was so short, but I was so big. I mean, she couldn't even move. For months, she had to stay in bed. I mean, I was just this gigantic size, and I got pictures that my mom showed me when I got older. And it was the biggest thing you could ever see for this short little tiny head on a woman that's having a baby. And I was born, and oh my goodness, I gotta praise God for her, because of my goodness, what she went through, 12 pounds, 4 ounces.
And you haven't stopped growing since either.
Yeah, I'm almost 9 foot now.
Others? Well, we remember in our hearts all of the things that our mothers have meant for us. Good times, bad times, but grateful always that we are here in this world, and anxious to do what we can to bless the world as our mothers blessed us by giving us birth. We're going to take on meditation on breathing as part of our practice for the day. This is a kind of a spiritual practice, I like to think of it. Breathing in, breathing out, we still ourselves, prepare ourselves to breathe forth blessings on the world. And we're getting a little more ambitious this time, so we're all going to sing it through a couple of times, the basic melody. And then I'm going to see if we can get this half to take on the second part. So Jim we'll all share. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. And then we'll continue here with, when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. And I'm trusting Richard to help me carry this side as well as whoever else has a strong voice. So
Let's go through the beginning melody, everybody.
absolutely.
A couple times.
Couple times.
And then you guys keep going on the main melody, and you guys come in on the descant, which is actually beneath the main melody there, but mind to the rest. There is a rest at the beginning of each phrase. If
Absolutely.
you don't mind the rest, with me. But here's the main melody, and everybody can do this.
I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love when I breathe in. I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love. I'll breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. the next time I come down here, we'll add the third part, which is the lazy part for all of those who can't carry a tune. Are there any here who can't carry a tune? So I was afraid to give you that out this time because we wouldn't have had enough people on the desk yet. But that part is simply breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And I don't believe there's anyone who couldn't do
Let's go one
that.
more time, choose a card.
You want to try it?
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
When I breathe in, I breathe in. When I breathe out, I breathe out. Three parts. It's a miracle, we did it. Thank you, everybody, for indulging me. Let's join together in a time of prayer and meditation. This is the Great Spirit Prayer, translated by Chief Yellow Lark. O Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the wind, whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunsets. Make my hands respect the things you have made and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you've taught my people. Help me to remain calm and strong in the face of all that comes towards me. Let me learn the lessons you've hidden in every leaf and rock. Help me seek pure thoughts and act with the intention of helping others. Help me find compassion without empathy overwhelming me. I seek strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. So when life fades, as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. So may it be. We enter into a time of silent meditation. If you would take out your hymnals again and turn to number 570 in the back, Prayer for the Earth. Number 570.
Can you do a reading first?
No. My mistake. Sorry. Prayer for the Earth, number 570. Spirit of love that flows against our flesh, sets it trembling, moves across it as across grass, erasing every boundary that we accept, and swings the doors of our lives wide. Spirit that hears each one of us, hears all that is, listens, hear us out. Our own pulse beats in every stranger's throat, and also there within the flowered ground beneath our feet. We can hear it in the water, in wood, and even in stone. We are earth of this earth, and we are bone of its bone. Gaia is the Greek goddess of the earth. In the Roman tradition, her Latin name is Terra, hence terrestrial, terraforming, and so on. The stories about Gaia make it clear that she was not what you would call a touchy-feely mother. She was one of the primordial Greek deities. She's the ancestral mother of all of life. She's the mother of Uranus, the sky, from whose sexual union she bore the Titans, who themselves were parents of many of the Olympian gods, the Cyclops, the giants. And then Gaia came to hate her son Uranus and conspired with her other son Kronos to castrate him. Later, she worked with her grandson Zeus to defeat her own children, the Titans. Not touchy-feely at all. And of course, it's all nonsense. We, in our enlightened age, know that the universe came into being with the Big Bang. We have no need for such nonsensical tales of how life began on Earth, like this myth of Gaia, which we have found in every culture's folklore. But we, in our scientific age, understand everything, unlike those primitive ancestors of ours. But Mom seems awfully mad these days. She's lashing out at us almost as though we've done something wrong. She seems to be waging a shock and awe campaign against us. We're reminded almost daily that we are living through a climate crisis. Most recently, I saw the image, perhaps some of you saw it, of a horse on top of a barn, probably in Brazil, where quite unusual flooding is occurring and wiping out entire towns. Presumably, this kind of flooding is related to the climate crisis, which is having so many other impacts as well. The Gaia hypothesis, named after that irascible primordial goddess, was propounded in the early 1970s by chemist and inventor James Lovelock and biologist Lynn Margulis. The hypothesis posits that Earth and its biological systems behave like a single interconnected entity. And this entity has closely controlled, self-regulatory, negative feedback loops that keep the conditions on the planet favorable to life on Earth. Almost as though the Earth itself and its living inhabitants constituted a single self-regulating entity, sort of a very abstract being. And Earth could then be said to be alive. And Earth would then need to be seen holistically rather than as a collection of discrete and independent parts, sort of like a goddess. Now, in our modern scientific understanding of how everything works, we've lost touch with the sense of the sacredness of the earth. Nothing is forbidden to us. Nothing is off limits, whether in the form of curating life forms. We're now able to transform different kinds of life with gene editing, for example, modifying things to suit our needs, or ransacking every last place on earth in order to search for more and more fossil fuels and to advance our desire for everything. We all believe we should be free to do whatever we wish, and if we're multi-billionaires, we can even attempt to escape from Mother Earth altogether and perhaps, at least in fantasy, become self-sustaining without her. But Mom does seem to be pretty mad these days for some reason. Her shock and awe campaign is beginning to work, and at long last, a majority of her human children are starting to take notice. Max Weber argued in The Protestant Ethic that modern capitalism arose, at least in part, from the abstemious, self-denying ambitions of our own Puritan forebears who made these first and second parish congregations in the towns of Massachusetts. They avoided luxury, but they considered those among them who were most prosperous to be favored by God and therefore part of an elect that would be, through the mysterious workings of God's favor, much more likely to get to heaven. And given that heaven was the ultimate achievement, the earth didn't matter so much except for purposes of calculation, exploitation, and domination. Here's where we get the reasoning, for example, that you see. I was struck by a Wampanoag settlement in the former Plymouth Plantation, which you may remember, where the indigenous people were saying that the English came simply to take all of the wood and ship it back to England in order to prosper and get a better position in English society. Now, obviously, settlers remained, but the widespread notion that the indigenous people were not being efficient in their use of the earth is a common notion about why settlers ought to take over the land and use it more efficiently. So in the process of desacralizing the land in order to prosper and get to heaven, the earth became disenchanted for us. This German term means literally de-magication. The magic, the mystery, the sacredness was taken out of the earth. So for Weber, the effect of that demystification was that the world was leached of richness and mystery. It became disenchanted and disenchanting, predictable, intellectualized, scientifically understood. And in fact, that process is the flip side of the undesirable flip side of scientific progress. So the more we understand the pieces, the less we understand and honor the whole. So yeah, those old stories are total nonsense. We human beings are in complete charge and we can and should do whatever we want. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is off limits. There need be no end to economic growth and progress ever. But Mom has been yelling at us a lot lately. Maybe she's trying to tell us something. Maybe we, like those old titans of the myth, have grown too powerful, and for our own good, we have failed to note that we might risk a terrible defeat at Mother's hands. Now, in our own Unitarian Universalist tradition, we've gradually become more aware of the need for the sacred, the need to honor the mystery of the earth, even as we also applaud the unraveling of her secrets with our relentless conquest of science. Back in 1961, when the Unitarians and Universalists merged to create that most ungodly of all names for a denomination, Unitarian Universalists, a total of 8 syllables if you count them. We had 6 principles, not 7 as we have now. All of them were quite consistent with conventional secular liberal aspirations, and the first 6 continue to be. And they're good aspirations for living in a democratic society, respect for one another, concern for the processes of democracy, freedom of conscience, searching for truth and knowledge and understanding. And when first propounded, they were expressed in man speak, as were most such expressions of the time, you know, mankind, every man, he, the default pronoun, and so on. And then in part as a response to the feminist movement in our midst in the 70s and since, we chose to revise the principles to eliminate sexist language, among other purposes. There was a relentless manhunt through our bylaws and our hymnals to create an inclusive, non-gendered language instead of the traditional male-centric language. But one other outcome was the adoption of our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we're a part. And this moved us beyond the human sphere, the sphere in which we live our daily lives, our politics, our spiritual quest, into the broader sphere of all existence. And it added a responsibility to care for our Mother Earth. Here comes that mother again, that goddess, if you will. The other significant change in our expression of our purpose as Unitarian Universalists came in 1995 when we added a 6th source onto the Jewish traditions, the Christian traditions, the traditions of other lands, the secular humanist traditions. The 6th source honors spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions that celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And that also came out of the ferment of the feminist movement in our tradition, especially from the women's spirituality movement and the emergence of UU pagans as a distinct strand within our living tradition. And again, this took us beyond the Enlightenment's tolerant for religious traditions of many sources, which was not very tolerant of indigenous peoples, by the way. And back to the notion that those peoples, the people who first inhabited the land, might have had something going for them, and even that gasp, witches might have a thing or two that could enlighten us. Maybe the Native Americans, whom we so savagely displaced to create this exceptional nation of ours, knew something about how to live in harmony with Mother Nature. In that spirit, we acknowledge that this building and the town are built on the land of the Pocasset Wampanoag people of the area, and that we owe them respect and could live more responsibly by learning from them and from all indigenous peoples. And then there's that word sacred, a word that appears nowhere else in our foundational documents. If the circle of life is sacred, then there must be some limits to how we can trespass on life, our own and those of other people, other lives, beings and entities interconnected with the dependent web of life of which we are only a small part in this new understanding of Gaia. Maybe we should mend our ways so that Mom doesn't just decide to abandon us. When we despair about the future of the earth, some wags remind us that the earth will be fine. Whether humans will survive is an open question. So we need to recover a sense of the sacred. We need to recover our sense of gratitude to the web of life that sustains us. We need to acknowledge the ways that we've sometimes destroyed what is sacred. Most of us have lost a sense of a direct connection to the soil. Unless we get our hands dirty in gardening, we have lost our roots of dependency upon the earth. I too, growing up on a farm, no longer have that kind of direct connection. Exposing ourselves and our children to nature is critical to remind all of us about the immensity of this interconnected web of everything of which we are but a tiny part. The height of the mountains, the vastness of the oceans, the wonders of the heaven. These remind us that we are part of and responsible to care for much more than our own personal and exclusively human concerns. It's important that we return to the experience of gratitude for the ultimate source of our lives, not what we've built with our own hands, but what's been given to us as the gift of life and the means to maintain it. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si, Care for Our Common Home, suggests that we return to the old habit many of us grew up with of saying grace before we eat. How many of you were taught to say grace by your parents when you were children? If we were to say grace before we eat, if we were to give thanks and express gratitude toward the earth that sustains us more consistently, it would help to remind us of our dependence upon our Mother Earth and the whole interdependent web of all existence. We need to practice generosity rather than accumulation. Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants, offers important perspectives on gratitude and many other indigenous beliefs and practices that we might profitably adopt as our own. She says this about generosity. Generosity is simultaneously a moral and a material imperative, especially among people who live close to the land and know its waves of plenty and scarcity, where the well-being of one is linked to the well-being of all. Wealth among traditional people is measured by having enough to give away. Hoarding the gift, we become constipated with wealth, bloated with possessions, too heavy to join the dance. And isn't it, in fact, increasingly the case that in this new world where mom seems to be enraged with us, that the well-being of one is linked to the well-being of all? And in that spirit, we fortunate Americans in particular can learn to walk more lightly upon the earth. There are many simple ways we can each alter our own lives to make life easier for other humans and for all of those others who are part of the sacred web of all existence, of which we are just a tiny part. I think daily practices can have an important role in helping us stay focused on doing what we can to limit our own personal impact on the environment, to walk more lightly upon Mother Earth. Gratitude, for one thing, saying grace before meals. Recycling is a simple kind of mindfulness, which is not going to solve the climate crisis, but it becomes a practice of paying attention to how much waste each of us generates and how we might recycle as much as possible and reduce as much as possible, including here in your congregation. We all use energy, and we have to live in this world we've created. But there are simple ways to reduce the amount of energy we use. Washing in cold water, for example, using public transportation when possible, sharing rides, flying less, turning off lights. Our agricultural system is becoming an increasing burden on the land. The more meat we consume, especially beef, the more land is used and the more farmers are induced to clear forests to raise food for animals that we consume, with effects that are catastrophic for the health of the Amazon rainforest, for example. Consider committing yourself to Meatless Mondays and pay attention to the impacts the food you eat is having on the world. Feeding and transporting beef has twice the carbon footprint of any other food. Obviously, eating vegetarian meals is also less impactful than any kind of meat. For that reason, I pledged myself when I moved to the senior living community at Linden Ponds in Hingham not to eat beef while I was there. I make an exception for ethnic holidays, but I have not, in fact, with that exception, had any beef since moving. It becomes a reminder of what I can do in a tiny way that can matter. Waste less insofar as you can. 40% of the food that's produced in this country is thrown away. Compost whenever you can. Perhaps there's an occasion for composting here as well, or in your own backyard. You might, if you own your own home, be able to put solar panels on your home, put in better insulation. There are lots of new incentives available for doing that, and it'll pay off in the long run. Banks are beginning to focus, some of them, on reducing their investment in fossil fuel projects. There's a program that the Third Act is an organization for experienced adults, that is adults over 50, who are anxious to do something about climate change as we become elders. Not elderly, but elders. And they had an occasion on 3/2/1/2/3, March 23rd of last year, to lead actions in which people cut up their credit cards with major banks. I had some Chase cards, which I got rid of, and calling up the bank to say why they were stopping their participation in those particular banks. Sometimes if you have savings or retirement funds, they are invested in different things. You can try to avoid fossil fuels, and you can advocate for institutions that you're part of to do the same. Our Unitarian Universalist Association has focused on ethical investment of the funds of retirement accounts and so on. So for example, Harvard University a couple of years ago decided to divest from fossil fuels and devote the funding to studies of renewable energy. New York State made the same choice, as did the city of Boston. And you can talk to your family and friends about the sacredness of this earth, the wonders of this interconnected web of life, and what you're doing to walk more lightly on the earth. You can learn what you can do to advocate locally. I'm part of an advocacy group called Hingham Net Zero, and also of the Linden Ponds Global Warming Action Group. Sometimes it can seem overwhelming. What can I as an individual possibly do? And so I come back to the little things I can do. Breathing in peace, breathing out, breathe out. Love. Mindfulness is a way of refocusing myself. And then I can recall the words of Reverend Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And of course, no one has to do it alone. We can do it together. Now, it's not my intention to denigrate science and the responsible search for truth. It's just that science can't tell us how to behave, only the consequences of our behavior. Science is very much a key to responding to the climate crisis. It's just not the whole answer. Our commitments, our hopes, our faith, our respect for the sacred, these are also critically important in responding to Mother Earth's urgent warnings about this climate emergency. I may have indulged in a little too much fun at the expense of the notion of Gaia, and I don't mean to deny the importance of science. But it's interesting that many of the old myths, like the myth of Gaia, tell us about what happens when humans, and minor gods, of course, transgress beyond appropriate limits. Think about Icarus, who flew too close to the sun and fell into the ocean. Prometheus, who stole fire and was punished endlessly by pushing a rock up a mountain in vain. And maybe most relevant to us today is the story of Pandora, whose insatiable curiosity led her to open a box that released all of the evils that we are subject to on this earth. But also released among these was the gift of hope. And so despite all the horrors we may have unleashed, despite all we've done to tick off our Mother Earth, let's still act in hope rather than despair, as we learn again to honor and respect what is sacred and to do, each and every one of us, whatever we can to live more lightly in growing respect for this magnificent earth and all her creatures, for the sacred skies, for the stars in the heavens, for the whole astonishing universe, the cosmos, the sacred web of all existence, of which we are gratefully a part. So may it be, and amen. It's time now for our offering and offertory. Please give generously to sustain the work of this congregation. Time now for the sharing of joys and concerns, those matters great and small that touch us, our families, and those we love.
So today I'm remembering my mother-in-law. Her name was Mary Millie Young. And I was divorced from her son for 35 years. But Mary and I loved each other all those years. She saw me, she got me, she understood who I was, and I got who she was. She was loving and very strong. She was married to a survivor of a German concentration camp, and he was very difficult man because of that experience. And she's been gone 3 years. My ex-husband's been gone 2.5 years. And I miss her so much. And I just didn't want that to go by without saying her name.
So, I mean, this is a little bit of a joy. I'm just connected with what you were saying in your sermon, but I started becoming aware of fossil fuel investments of credit card companies, and Chase is really the worst. And so I had kind of fun this past year, waiting until those bills went down to zero, because we had 2 Chase credit cards. So now they went down to zero, they cut up, they won. When I close up, they say, oh, we start to lose you. Why is it that you're, discontinuing? And I said, investment in fossil fuels. And they said, oh, we want to be the interest rates back now. And I think that's interesting. And there are, we have now a credit card from a credit union, that doesn't invest in any fossil fuels and it's cash back. Some people think that if you give up your, one of them passes that Southwest one, where we've always been free lights and extra points and stuff like that, but you can get a responsible card. Now I'm preaching. You can, right? This is from a joy into a sermon. You can get a responsible credit card that actually birds too. So, anyway, I just, that was my.
These little things can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pay attention.
Well, to all the mothers, and to all who have mothered someone, whether you're a mother or not, happy Mother's Day. I just want to remind us all that on Gay Pride Week in Fall River, there is an event which this year will be happening on June 2nd, Sunday, June 2nd. So it's time for us to commit to it. It's in fact going to be present. And, we have historically been there and passed out some materials. We have limited materials, but we do have some materials. And I am going to be away until May 31st. So, as usual, I'm passing it to all of you to figure out this thing. But I commit to being there for the full day. In fact, we do commit to it.
Thanks for that reminder.
I don't quite know if this is appropriate, but I felt I couldn't leave without mentioning my parent who died 2 days ago. And it was a good thing because she was suffering. And nobody wants to see someone. The only thing anyway is a good thing. And I'm just grateful that I'm a mixed child. My dad is black and my mom's white. And my mom's French. And she introduced me to her side of the family. But I never got to know my black side. And recently I have. And thankfully, I got to know Mary before she passed on. And she's a mother to 4 children, and I just wanted to say how grateful I am to her. She was good.
Thank you.
My mother was a child of the prairie. Life in the Midwest was hard. Winters were bone chilling, the summers were suffocating. Mental illness was pretty common in our community and certainly in my family. In their last years, my mother suffered from pretty severe dementia. But there was a light side to it. I would get out to visit her once or twice a year, and I'd stay a few days, visit her daily in succession. She never remembered the day before, so she was always delighted to see me on the second and third day, and she was on the first. But the rest of the end of her life was hard. She had dementia pretty severely, and all she wanted to do was go home. And so her passing was a blessing to that. I can't, one memory of my sister shared with me. My father had pretty severe mental illness. My sister once asked her, "Why do you stay with him?" And she got tearful. She says, "I have nowhere else to go."
I have one that's, I just celebrated my 60th birthday on May 2nd. I went to see my doctors and they said, "In your face," because when I was 14, they told me with my heart condition and everything that I had going, I'd be lucky to live past my age of 20 or 25. Guess what, buddy? I'm still ticking with a AA battery in my chest, and I'm here at 60 years old, when I could have been, like they told me back then. 1971, I believe it was, when I started all this stuff. But then it was just like, wow, they thought I wasn't gonna live past because of my heart and all these other things that go on with it. But guess what? I'm still ticking, my battery's still in there. I guess it's all right.
And that's an example of having a strong spirit. Medically, they were probably right, we should have done
Yeah,
it. But if you have a strong spirit, you
I proved them wrong.
And we're delighted you did. Thank you. If you would take out your hymnals and turn to number 121 for the big. It's 21. I made another mistake. That's two in one service. I know, because I made a mistake. I messed up. Number 21. Please rise in body or in spirit. And now in our going, may the spirit of life and love bless us and keep us. May its light shine upon us and out from within us, and be gracious unto us and bring us peace. For this is the day that we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.